There's a country on Earth that broke the rules of geography, and somehow it still works. A land where snow peaks meet deserts, where one river can feed hundreds of millions, and where dozens of worlds exist within a single border. Most travelers only see its surface, the colors, the chaos, the noise, and never realize what they've missed. Because the deeper you look, the more impossible it becomes to explain, and the more unforgettable it gets. Before we explore its most breathtaking wonders, we'll uncover the fascinating facts that reveal what truly holds this vast and vibrant land together. It's almost impossible to describe India in a single frame. Every number about it sounds exaggerated until you realize it's true. More than 1 billion people, speaking over 1,600 languages, following hundreds of faiths, all moving together like a living organism. But the real story begins long before borders and politics. Thousands of years ago, when much of the world was still tribal, India was already building cities with drainage systems, grid streets, and brick houses. Archaeologists uncovered the ruins of an ancient civilization along the Indus River, one that measured precision in millimeters and planned entire neighborhoods around the flow of wind and water. It's one of the oldest urban cultures ever discovered. And yet, the truly mind-bending part is this: some of its traditions never disappeared. The same river patterns that guided that civilization still shape India's spiritual and agricultural life today. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. India didn't just influence culture, it changed how humans think. The concept of zero, the decimal system, and even the idea of infinity were born here. In Sanskrit, the word shunya meant both emptiness and potential, a poetic contradiction that later transformed global mathematics. Without it, there would be no modern science, no computers, no space travel. Yet, the paradox runs deeper. This same land that gave the world abstract logic also gave it one of the richest traditions of emotion, music, dance, and color. Across its region, sound isn't just entertainment, it's devotion. In Indian classical music, one note can last longer than an entire Western phrase because the goal isn't rhythm, it's transcendence. And that idea that art can be a path to the divine shaped everything from temple carvings to Bollywood cinema. But here's the strange part. Even nature here follows its own rhythm. The country spans nearly 3.2 million square kilometers, almost 1.25 million square miles. Yet every few hundred kilometers, the climate, the soil, and even the cuisine change completely. In the north, you can stand among glaciers higher than 8,000 meters, over 26,000 feet, while a 2-hour flight south lands you in humid rainforest. Monsoon winds travel more than 4,000 kilometers, nearly 2,500 miles, sweeping across mountains, deserts, and oceans before returning again like clockwork. For centuries, people learned to read these winds like a calendar. Farmers still know exactly which day to sow their seeds by watching the sky turn gray. But not everything that moves through India is visible. Beneath its land lies a network of tectonic plates colliding, the same force that created the Himalayas. Every year, those mountains grow about 2 centimeters, almost an inch taller. That slow, unstoppable rise is what fuels its rivers and shapes the land's extremes, from frozen summits to fertile plains. It's like watching geology and mythology meet halfway. And then there's the human scale. India is home to the world's largest democracy, a system that somehow manages to coordinate over 900 million registered voters. During elections, entire schools transform into polling stations, camels carry voting machines across deserts, and boats sail to river islands just so one person can cast a ballot. It's chaotic, costly, and utterly human. But here's the incredible part. It works. This diversity extends far beyond language and belief. India's calendar runs differently. There are over 30 regional calendars still used alongside the global one. In some areas, people celebrate New Year in March, in others in April, and in yet others, every lunar cycle brings a new festival. It's as if the country collectively decided that time should be measured not by dates, but by celebration. And those celebrations, they're not just holidays. They're moments when entire cities transform overnight. During one festival, millions gather on the banks of rivers to bathe in sacred waters, creating the largest peaceful gathering of humans on Earth. Scientists once calculated that the heat from the lamps lit during Diwali could raise the city's nighttime temperature by nearly half a degree Celsius, almost a full Fahrenheit. Even light behaves differently here. But the most fascinating thing about India isn't its size, or its history, or even its spirituality. It's how everything opposite seems to belong together. Ancient rituals coexist with nuclear research. Farmers use smartphones to track monsoon data. And temples stand beside tech parks that design artificial intelligence. The line between tradition and innovation doesn't exist. It's the same pulse in a different rhythm. And yet, despite the noise, there's balance. India's philosophy sees the world not as a clash of opposites, but as a dance between them. In Sanskrit, it's called Leela, the divine play, where creation and destruction, joy and sorrow are simply different notes in the same melody. That's why chaos here doesn't feel like disorder. It feels alive. Every sound, scent, and color tells part of a larger story, one that's still unfolding today. But here's what most people never realize. Those stories aren't written in books. They're carved into mountains, painted across deserts, and whispered by rivers that have flowed for thousands of years. And now, we're about to see them. Because to understand India, you can't just learn about it. You have to witness it. Our journey begins in the far north, where the earth rises to meet the sky. At the top of the world, where air turns thin and silence feels alive, lies Ladakh, a land of stone, sky, and staggering beauty. Here, the Himalayas and the Karakoram ranges collide, creating one of the highest inhabited regions on Earth. Some valleys sit above 3,000 meters, nearly 10,000 feet, while passes like Kardung La reach over 5,300 meters or 17,500 feet. It's a landscape so vast that shadows move slower than the wind, and colors shift with every passing cloud. But what truly makes Ladakh extraordinary isn't just its altitude, it's its resilience. For centuries, people here have survived where few could, building homes of mud and stone that trap warmth in winter and relying on glacial melt for water. Each village is a miracle of balance, human life existing in harmony with one of the harshest climates on the planet. And then there's Leh, the ancient capital. Once part of the Silk Road, its markets traded silk, salt, and turquoise between India, Tibet, and Central Asia. Even today, prayer flags ripple across the rooftops, carrying whispered mantras into the wind. But as you follow those winds north, the land changes again. The mountains open into a hidden valley, one where rivers braid through sand dunes and where the desert meets the snow. At first glance, it doesn't seem real. A cold desert at more than 3,000 meters, almost 10,000 feet, where snow peaks tower over golden sand dunes and camels walk beneath glaciers. This is the Nubra Valley, one of India's most surreal landscapes, hidden between the Karakoram and Ladakh ranges. Once, it was part of an ancient trade route linking Central Asia to Tibet and northern India. Caravans carried silk and spices across these barren passes, following the Shiok and Nubra rivers that still twist through the valley today. Those rivers are fed entirely by melting glaciers, streams of turquoise that carve impossible paths through the sand. But what makes Nubra truly remarkable isn't just its beauty, it's the contrast. In summer, temperatures climb above 30 degrees Celsius, nearly 90 degrees Fahrenheit, yet just a few kilometers higher, snow never melts. Monasteries cling to cliffs above sea-level oases where apricot trees bloom, even though rain almost never falls. It's life blooming where logic says it shouldn't. And when evening comes, silence returns, broken only by the sound of wind moving across the dunes. But beyond those dunes lies another secret of the Himalayas, a valley carved not by rivers, but by faith itself. They call it the Middle Land, the space between Earth and heaven. At more than 4,000 meters, nearly 13,000 feet, Spiti Valley feels closer to the moon than to anywhere else on Earth. Jagged cliffs, frozen rivers, and ancient monasteries carved into rock, this is one of the coldest and driest inhabited regions in the Himalayas. During winter, temperatures drop below -30 degrees Celsius, nearly -22 degrees Fahrenheit, and the valley remains cut off from the rest of the world for months. Yet, life here has continued for over 1,000 years. Villages like Dankar and Khyber cling to cliff sides, connected by narrow paths once walked by monks and traders. The people grow barley at altitudes where most crops can't survive, storing it through long winters powered by the sun and firewood. But there's something even more remarkable. Fossils of marine life still lie trapped in these mountains. Millions of years ago, this whole region was once an ocean floor. Today, seashells are found more than 4 kilometers above sea level, reminding us that the Earth is always rewriting itself. And beyond these fossilized peaks, the mountains open again, into a place where the Himalayas meet Tibet, and time itself seems to pause. On the edge of India, just 24 kilometers, about 15 miles, from the border with Tibet, lies the last inhabited village of the country, Chitkul. Perched at 3,450 meters, or nearly 11,300 feet, it sits where pine forests give way to snowfields and where silence feels endless. The Baspa River runs through the valley, carrying water so clear it looks like liquid glass. Wooden houses stand with slate roofs, carved with protective symbols from ancient folklore. Locals still believe the guardian goddess of Chitkul watches over travelers, and every year, villagers trek to her high-altitude shrine to offer prayers for protection. During summer, fields of mustard and peas bloom across the valley, framed by peaks dusted with fresh snow. In winter, temperatures plunge to minus 20 degrees Celsius, around minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit, and most families move down the valley to escape the deep snow. It's the rhythm of survival that has repeated for generations. But even here, where the road ends, the story doesn't stop. Because just beyond these ridges, the mountains shift again, revealing a landscape of forests, temples, and colonial echoes waiting in the mist. When the road descends from the wild heights of Chitkul, the air grows softer, scented with pine and cedar. Hidden among the clouds lies Shimla, once the summer capital of British India. At 2,200 meters, about 7,200 feet above sea level, this hill town was built entirely on colonial dreams. In the 19th century, the British fled here every summer to escape the scorching plains. They built mock Tudor cottages, churches, and even a railway. The Kalka-Shimla line, a marvel of engineering with more than 800 bridges and 100 tunnels, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Even today, the toy train crawls through mountain forests, clinging to cliffs that drop hundreds of meters below. But what makes Shimla fascinating isn't just its architecture, it's how time bends here. Morning fog still rolls through the same streets where officers once played cricket, and echoes of colonial voices mix with temple bells. And as the mist clears, you can see far beyond the town, to the rivers that flow toward the plains, carrying the story of the Himalayas to a new world below. It's there, where the mountains meet the sacred, that the next chapter begins. Where the Ganges first leaves the mountains, two towns rise side by side, one meditative, one sacred. Rishikesh and Haridwar mark the threshold between the Himalayas and the Indian plains. The river here glows turquoise, fresh from glaciers 250 kilometers away, roughly 155 miles, before winding down toward the heart of India. Haridwar is where pilgrims come to wash away their sins. Every evening, thousands gather on the riverbanks for the Ganga Aarti, a ceremony of fire and light. Hundreds of lamps float downstream, turning the water into a moving constellation. It's one of the oldest continuous rituals on Earth, performed every single sunset for centuries. A few miles upriver, Rishikesh feels quieter, but no less powerful. Known as the yoga capital of the world, it drew Western travelers in the 1960s, including the Beatles, who stayed in an ashram here. Today, it blends ancient spirituality with modern seekers. But the Ganges doesn't stop for anyone. It continues its journey east, flowing toward one of the oldest cities on the planet, where life and death share the same riverbank. Few places on Earth feel as eternal as Varanasi. Older than Athens, Rome, or Jerusalem, it's believed to have been founded over 3,000 years ago and still pulses with life every dawn. The city rises in steps from the Ganges, with more than 80 ghats, riverfront terraces where pilgrims bathe, pray, and bid farewell to loved ones. At sunrise, the air fills with chants, temple bells, and the smell of incense. Wooden boats drift across the river as the first rays of light touch the water. For Hindus, to die here is liberation, an end to the cycle of rebirth. And yet, Varanasi never feels somber. It feels infinite. It's also a city of contradictions. Beside sacred temples stand busy bazaars selling silk and copper. Students, priests, and tourists share the same narrow lanes that have echoed with footsteps for millennia. But perhaps the most remarkable thing is how everything here coexists: faith, commerce, and chaos, all orbiting the same sacred river. Follow that river downstream, and it leads deeper into India's story, to the plains where empires rose and legends were born. In the northern plains, where fields of wheat stretch toward the horizon, stands a city built on faith, Amritsar. It's the spiritual heart of Sikhism and home to the Golden Temple, one of the most serene sanctuaries on earth. Covered in more than 700 kilograms, around 1,500 pounds of gold. It glows like liquid light, reflected in the surrounding pool. Every day, thousands of pilgrims come here barefoot, walking across marble courtyards before entering the sanctum. But what makes this place extraordinary isn't its beauty, it's its humanity. Inside the temple complex, volunteers cook and serve free meals to up to 100,000 people daily, regardless of religion or status. It's the world's largest free kitchen, running entirely on donations and service. And yet, as night falls and the temple lights shimmer across the water, Amritsar feels timeless again, a reminder that compassion can outshine even pain. Far to the southeast, another city holds the pulse of that same history, where dynasties rose, fell, and left behind an empire of stone. Few cities in the world carry as many layers as Delhi. It's not one city, but several, built and rebuilt over more than 2,000 years. Here, ancient walls stand beside glass towers. Mughal domes reflect in metro windows. More than 20 million people call Delhi home, nearly the population of Australia, and every street feels like a timeline of civilizations. The remnants of 7 historical cities lie beneath modern neighborhoods. From the ruins of Tughlaqabad to the grandeur of the Red Fort and Humayun's tomb, every corner hides a different chapter of India's story. But Delhi isn't just history. It's the engine of modern India. It's where ideas, politics, and cultures collide daily, yet somehow still coexist. Even its chaos has rhythm. Street vendors calling out, rickshaws honking, the smell of spices in the air. And beyond the city walls, one monument rises above them all, a symbol of eternal love and symmetry so perfect it almost feels unreal. That's where the journey leads next. On the banks of the Yamuna River, the air seems to shimmer with memory. This is Agra, once the capital of the Mughal Empire and home to the most famous monument of love ever built, the Taj Mahal. Completed in 1653 after more than 2 decades of construction, it required 20,000 workers and materials brought from all across Asia. The marble alone came from 400 kilometers away, nearly 250 miles, and precious stones were inlaid using a technique called pietra dura. But beyond its beauty lies a story of devotion and loss. Emperor Shah Jahan built it for his wife Mumtaz Mahal, who died giving birth to their 14th child. He planned to build a matching black mausoleum across the river, but legend says he was overthrown by his own son before it could begin. At sunrise, the marble glows pink. At sunset, golden. And by moonlight, almost blue. It's said the Taj changes color with emotion, a reflection of the sky itself. Yet Agra is more than one monument. It's a reminder that even in stone, love can echo across centuries. And beyond these walls, the desert begins, leading to a city painted in shades of pink. They call it the Pink City, but it's more than color. Built in the 18th century by Maharaja Sawai Jai Singh II, Jaipur was one of the first planned cities of India. Its streets form a perfect grid, designed according to ancient Hindu architectural principles called Vastu Shastra. Every road, gate, and market aligns with cosmic geometry. The color came later. In 1876, the entire city was painted terracotta pink to welcome the Prince of Wales, a color symbolizing hospitality. More than a century later, the city still glows in the same hue, even under the desert sun day. But Jaipur is not just a relic of the past. It's a living museum. At the city palace, royal descendants still reside. The Hawa Mahal, or Palace of Winds, was built with 953 windows, allowing royal women to watch the streets unseen. And towering above it all is the Amber Fort, a blend of Hindu and Mughal artistry carved into the hillside. As night falls, Jaipur turns golden under lantern light, the air filled with the scent of spice and sandalwood. But further southwest, hidden in the Aravalli Hills, lies a fortress so vast it could rival the Great Wall of China. Rising above the forests of Rajasthan, Kumbhalgarh Fort feels more like a kingdom than a fortress. Built in the 15th century by Rana Kumbha, it stretches across 36 kilometers, nearly 22 miles of walls, making it the second longest continuous wall on Earth after China's Great Wall. From a distance, it looks like a stone serpent coiling over the ridges of the Aravalli Range. Inside those walls lie over 300 temples, palaces, and stepwells, reminders of an era when kingdoms defended not just their people, but their culture. For centuries, Kumbhalgarh stood unconquered. Even powerful Mughal armies couldn't break through until they united with neighboring rulers, and even then, the fort fell only once. At night, the ramparts glow under floodlights, revealing the scale of what was once considered impossible to build. And from the highest tower, you can see the line where the desert begins, a reminder that beyond defense and glory, the land itself was always the true frontier. Follow that horizon far enough, and the golden light leads to another city, one built not for battle, but for beauty. If Jaipur is the color of warmth, Udaipur is the color of reflection, surrounded by the Aravalli Hills and built around a network of shimmering lakes. It's often called the Venice of the East. Lake Picola lies at its heart, a man-made lake created in 1362 to store rainwater. Floating upon it is the legendary Lake Palace, now a hotel but once a royal retreat for the kings of Mewar. Its marble walls rise directly from the water, glowing gold at sunrise and silver at dusk. Nearby stands the city palace, the largest in Rajasthan, an immense complex of courtyards, mirrored halls, and balconies overlooking the lake. Udaipur's beauty isn't just visual, it's cultural. Miniature painting, marble carving, and music still thrive here as they did centuries ago. Even the narrow lanes echo with sitar melodies during evening festivals. But beneath its calm surface, the lakes hold a secret. Their water system is entirely artificial, interconnected to survive the desert's heat. It's human ingenuity disguised as paradise. And as the light fades over Lake Picola, the journey continues west, toward a city painted blue beneath the desert Sunday. From a distance, it looks like a mirage, a city painted entirely in shades of blue. This is Jodhpur, the blue city of Rajasthan, where more than half the old town is washed in indigo. Originally, the color marked the homes of Brahmins, the priestly caste. But over time, everyone joined in, not for status, but survival. The pigment helps keep the houses cool under temperatures that can reach 45 degrees Celsius, nearly 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Above this sea of blue rises the mighty Kumbhalgarh Fort, built in the 15th century. It stands over 120 meters, around 400 feet above the city. Its walls are so thick that cannonballs from enemy sieges are still embedded in the stone. Inside, intricate palaces and courtyards reveal the grandeur of Rajput royalty. At sunset, the entire city glows like sapphire under a golden sky. But beyond Jodhpur's beauty lies its endurance, a reminder that adaptation itself can be an art form. And farther west, the desert deepens, where golden fortresses rise straight from the sand, and the wind sings through dunes older than history. As the road stretches toward the horizon, the world turns to gold. Jaisalmer rises from the Thar Desert like a vision, its walls and houses carved from yellow sandstone that glows at dawn and burns amber at dusk. That's why it's called the Golden City. Built in 1156, the Jaisalmer Fort is one of the few living forts in the world. More than 3,000 people still call it home. Inside its walls are narrow lanes, temples, and havelis, elaborately carved mansions once owned by merchants who grew rich trading along the Silk Route. The architecture here is like lace and stone, every balcony and arch carved by hand centuries ago. But the most fascinating thing about Jaisalmer is its defiance. Despite being surrounded by desert, it survived through centuries thanks to ingenious water conservation, underground tanks that stored rainwater during the monsoon. It's a city that turns scarcity into strength. And when night falls, the desert sky reveals a billion stars, the same stars that guided travelers for thousands of years. Follow those stars further west, and they'll lead to a place where the earth itself turns white. Few landscapes on Earth feel as otherworldly as the Rann of Kutch. stretching across more than 7,500 square kilometers, nearly 2,900 square miles. It's the largest salt desert in the world. For most of the year, it's a vast, cracked plain of blinding white. But when the monsoon arrives, it floods and becomes a shimmering inland sea, reflecting the sky like a mirror. This surreal transformation is what makes the Rann so mesmerizing. During winter, the region hosts the Rann Utsav, a festival of lights, dance, and music held under the full moon. Thousands of visitors camp on the salt flats, watching the desert glow silver under starlight. Despite its beauty, life here is extreme. Temperatures can swing from near freezing at night to 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit, during the day. And as the salt plains fade into the horizon, the sound of waves begins to rise, calling us toward the coast and the bustling world beyond. Where the desert ends, the ocean begins, and with it, a city that never stops moving. Mumbai is India's heartbeat, chaotic, creative, and endlessly alive. Built on 7 islands, it grew into a megacity of more than 20 million people, a place where dreams are chased faster than the tides that surround it. But beneath the modern skyline lies a city of layers. Colonial architecture like the Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, stands beside glass towers. The Gateway of India still faces the Arabian Sea, built in 1924 to welcome King George V, while fishing villages like Worli Kolawada preserve a way of life that predates the skyscrapers by centuries. Mumbai is also the home of Bollywood, the world's largest film industry, producing over 1,500 movies a year. Yet amid all the noise and motion, there's an undercurrent of resilience. From the 2008 terror attacks to monsoon floods, the city always rebuilds, stronger, louder, brighter. And when the rains finally clear, the coastline glitters again, leading south to beaches where time slows and the air smells of salt and spice. If Mumbai is speed, Goa is rhythm. Stretching along 100 kilometers, about 62 miles of Arabian coastline, it's where palm trees meet golden sand, and Portuguese history lingers in every street. Goa was a Portuguese colony for more than 450 years, and its architecture still reflects that blend of East and West. Whitewashed churches, red-tiled roofs, and spice-scented markets tell stories of traders who came here chasing the promise of paradise. But Goa isn't just about the past. Its beaches, from the calm waters of Palolem to the lively shores of Baga, attract travelers from all over the world. It's a place where time bends. Mornings of yoga and fishing boats, afternoons of music and surf, nights of lanterns and laughter. And beneath its laid-back charm lies something deeper. Goa has one of India's highest literacy rates, a vibrant art scene, and thriving biodiversity, including the mangrove forests of Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary. As the sun dips below the sea, the coastline glows orange, and the tropical air hums with life. But inland, far from the ocean breeze, lie the ruins of an ancient empire, carved into stone and surrounded by hills of granite. Scattered across boulders and palm groves, Hampi feels like the memory of a forgotten civilization. Once the capital of the Vijayanagara Empire, it was among the richest cities on earth in the 15th century, said to rival Rome and Beijing in wealth and grandeur. Today, its ruins stretch across 4,000 hectares, nearly 10,000 acres, and include more than 1,600 surviving monuments. The Virupaksha Temple still stands, its tower rising over 50 meters, about 165 feet above the Tungabhadra River. But the wonder of Hampi isn't just in its architecture, it's in its silence. As the sun sets, the rocks turn copper, and the air fills with the sound of distant drums from nearby villages. It's a place where history feels alive, echoing through the stones. And as the river winds south, the land grows greener, leading into forests, palaces, and the lingering grace of the royal south. In southern India, elegance takes the shape of a city. Mysuru, once the seat of the Wadiyar dynasty. It's often called the City of Palaces, and its heart beats inside one of the most magnificent of them all, the Mysore Palace. Built in 1912, it blends Hindu, Islamic, and Gothic styles, illuminated every Sunday night by nearly 100,000 light bulbs that turn it into a golden dream. But Mysuru isn't just royal grandeur. It's the cultural capital of Karnataka, birthplace of classical dance, silk weaving, and sandalwood craft. During the 10-day Dussehra festival, the streets fill with elephants, musicians, and flower-covered chariots in a celebration that has lasted for centuries. The city is also home to one of India's oldest yoga schools, drawing visitors from across the world. Yet, even in its modern pulse, Mysuru feels timeless, graceful, deliberate, proud. And beyond its palaces, the road begins to climb again, into misty hills where tea gardens stretch like emerald oceans. As the air cools and the scent of eucalyptus fills the breeze, you reach Ooty, the queen of hill stations. Perched at 2,200 meters, about 7,200 feet, in the Nilgiri Hills, Ooty was once a British summer escape, its climate reminding colonists of home. Even today, its rolling hills and stone cottages feel more European than Indian. The Nilgiri Mountain Railway, built in 1908 and now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, winds through tunnels and across steep bridges. It climbs gradients so sharp that special rack and pinion tracks are used to pull it uphill. From its windows, the hills look painted, green tea estates, silver lakes, and distant waterfalls glimmering in the sunday. Ooty is also famous for its botanical gardens, established in 1848, and for its chocolate, handmade and rich from local cocoa. But what makes it unforgettable is the stillness, the way clouds drift through tea fields and time itself seems to slow. Yet, deeper into the Western Ghats lies a region even lusher, where every hill breathes with mist and scent of tea leaves after rain. High in the mountains of Kerala, Munnar feels like an endless garden. Its tea plantations ripple across the hills like waves, more than 24,000 hectares, around 59,000 acres, of emerald green. At sunrise, mist rolls through the valleys, and the entire landscape glows like it's alive. Originally developed by British planters in the late 19th century, Munnar still produces some of the finest tea in India. The air carries the scent of fresh leaves, and workers can be seen hand-picking buds as they've done for generations. Nearby, the Araviculum National Park shelters the endangered Nilgiri tahr, a mountain goat found nowhere else on Earth. During the rare blooming of the Nila Karinji flower, which happens only once every 12 years, the hills turn violet blue as far as the eye can see. Munnar is a place where nature doesn't just surround you, it absorbs you. And as the hills descend toward the coast, rivers widen into shimmering canals lined with palms and houseboats drifting on quiet waters. Welcome to the Venice of India, a labyrinth of lagoons, rivers, and canals known as Alleppey. Here, the water becomes the road, and life moves at the rhythm of the backwaters. Houseboats glide past villages built on narrow strips of land, where children wave from doorsteps and fishermen cast nets from wooden canoes. The network stretches over 900 kilometers, more than 550 miles, through Kerala's lush coast. Many of these canals date back centuries, built for transporting rice and spices that once made this region one of the richest in India. Today, they're a floating world of tranquility, where coconut palms lean over mirror-like water and egrets glide low across the surface. But Alleppey isn't just peace, it's precision. Every year, the Nehru Trophy boat race turns these calm waters into thunder as 100-foot snake boats, each powered by dozens of rowers, compete in one of the most spectacular traditions of South India. And when night falls, lanterns reflect off the still canals and the air hums with crickets. Follow the shoreline south, and the water finally meets the open sea at the gateway to Kerala's coastal capital. At India's southern tip, where the Arabian Sea shimmers under endless sun, lies Thiruvananthapuram, or simply Trivandrum. It's a city that balances ancient devotion and modern life, where palm-fringed beaches meet sacred temples and colonial boulevards. At its heart stands the Padmanabhaswamy Temple, dedicated to Lord Vishnu, one of the richest religious sites in the world. In 2011, hidden vaults beneath the temple revealed treasures worth over $20 billion. Yet Trivandrum isn't trapped in its past. It's also a hub of education and technology, home to India's first space research center. Just a few kilometers away, Kovalam Beach stretches along the coast, where fishermen pull in nets at sunrise as surfers ride the morning waves. Here, the country feels like it's exhaling, calm, luminous, infinite. But inland, beyond the palms and the coast, lies a city older than legend, glowing with temple towers and eternal devotion. Few cities embody South India's soul like Madurai. It's one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities on Earth, with records dating back more than 2,500 years. At its center stands the Meenakshi Amman Temple, a masterpiece of Dravidian architecture. Its 14 gopurams, gateway towers, rise up to 50 meters, or about 165 feet, covered with thousands of colorful sculptures of gods, demons, and celestial beings. Every day, tens of thousands of pilgrims enter its halls, filled with the scent of jasmine and camphor. The temple isn't just a monument, it's a living organism, with rituals that have been performed at the same hours for centuries. Madurai was once the capital of the Pandya Empire and a major center of Tamil culture, poetry, and trade. Even today, its streets still pulse with that rhythm, chaos and devotion intertwined. Markets overflow with flowers, spices, and silk, while temple bells echo through the warm night air. But the road south doesn't end here. It crosses the sea over one of India's most astonishing bridges toward an island built on faith. Where the land meets the ocean and the wind carries the scent of salt and prayer, lies Rameswaram, one of India's holiest towns. It sits on an island off the coast of Tamil Nadu, connected to the mainland by the legendary Pamban Bridge, India's first sea bridge, stretching nearly 2.3 kilometers, or about 1.4 miles. According to Hindu mythology, this is where Lord Rama built a bridge of floating stones to reach Sri Lanka. Even today, some coral stones found in the area are said to float, a mystery that blurs the line between legend and science. The Ramanathaswamy Temple, with its 1,200-meter-long corridor, nearly 4,000 feet, is one of the longest temple corridors in the world. Its 1,000 carved pillars cast shadows that shift like waves of light. Pilgrims come here to bathe in the 22 sacred wells within the temple, each said to have different healing properties. But beyond faith, Rameswaram is also a place of resilience, rebuilt after devastating cyclones, standing strong against the sea. And as you cross back over the bridge, the horizon widens again, toward the east, where the story of India began with trade, art, and revolution. If India had a soul shaped by intellect and art, it would live in Kolkata. Once the capital of British India, this city on the banks of the Hooghly River still carries a colonial elegance, old trams, crumbling mansions, and boulevards that whisper history. Known as the City of Joy, Kolkata is both poetic and raw. It gave birth to Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore, to India's modern cinema, and to some of its fiercest political movements. Its people speak in metaphors, argue philosophy in tea stalls, and celebrate life with unmatched passion. Every autumn, the city transforms during Durga Puja, a 10-day festival where massive idols of the goddess rise across the neighborhoods, surrounded by lights, music, and dance. More than 4 million people pour into the streets each night, a living river of devotion and color. But Kolkata is also a city of contrasts. Colonial churches beside Hindu temples, hand-pulled rickshaws beside metros, poverty beside poetry. It's messy, magnetic, and utterly human. And when dawn breaks over the Hooghly, boats begin to drift again, heading north toward the misty hills where the air smells of tea and rain. High in the foothills of the eastern Himalayas, Darjeeling rises like a dream among clouds. At 2,000 meters, about 6,500 feet, it's the land of tea, toy trains, and unforgettable views. The British first developed it as a hill station in the 19th century, recognizing its cool climate and fertile slopes. Today, Darjeeling tea is world famous, grown on steep plantations that seem to hang from the mountains. Each leaf is hand-picked, withered, and rolled in the misty air, giving it the light floral flavor that made it the champagne of teas. The Darjeeling Himalayan Railway, another UNESCO World Heritage Site, winds its way through the hills with old steam engines still in use, a moving relic of colonial times. And from Tiger Hill at sunrise, you can sometimes glimpse the world's third highest peak, Kangchenjunga, glowing gold in the first light. But beyond its beauty, Darjeeling is a meeting point of cultures, languages, and landscapes. And as you cross eastward into the clouds, those mountains lead to a hidden kingdom nestled in serenity and snow. Cradled between Nepal, Bhutan, and Tibet, Sikkim feels like an untouched world suspended between clouds. It's one of India's smallest states, yet home to some of its most dramatic landscapes, from subtropical forests to glaciers over 5,000 meters high, or nearly 16,500 feet. Dominating it all is Mount Kangchenjunga, the world's third highest peak, revered by locals as a living deity. The mountain isn't meant to be conquered. Even climbers stop short of its summit out of respect for its sacredness. Sikkim was once a Buddhist kingdom, and its monasteries still glow with prayer flags and butter lamps. Rumtek and Pemayangsa are among the oldest, their walls painted with vivid murals depicting the journey of the soul. The air smells of juniper and incense, and every sound, the wind, the bells, the chanting, feels like part of a single rhythm. It's also India's first fully organic state, where farming and nature exist in harmony. But beyond these peaceful valleys, the land begins to unfold again toward a river island that floats between heaven and earth. In the middle of the mighty Brahmaputra River lies a world few travelers ever reach, Majuli, the world's largest river island. It spans more than 350 square kilometers, about 135 square miles, but its size changes constantly as the river erodes and rebuilds its banks each year. Majuli is more than a landscape. It's a living culture. It's the spiritual heart of Assam, home to centuries-old satras, monastic centers that keep alive the traditions of Assamese art, music, and theater. The island is also a sanctuary for wildlife, migratory birds, river dolphins, and countless species of fish thrive in its wetlands. But Majuli faces a fragile future. Rising water levels and erosion threaten to wash away parts of the island within decades, making its culture and beauty all the more precious. Still, as long as the Brahmaputra flows, Majuli endures, a reminder that life itself is shaped by movement. And farther east, the clouds gather again into the land of endless rain and living bridges. If there's a place where Earth breathes water, it's here, in Meghalaya, the abode of clouds. Shillong, the state's capital, sits on rolling hills dotted with pine forests, waterfalls, and colonial cottages. Once known as the Scotland of the East, it has a rhythm all its own, music, mist, and a pace that feels like poetry. But travel deeper south, and the rainfall intensifies. Cherrapunji and nearby Mawsynram are among the wettest places on the planet, receiving up to 11,000 millimeters, nearly 433 inches of rain each year. Yet instead of fighting the rain, people here learn to live with it. Over centuries, they built living root bridges by guiding the roots of rubber trees across rivers, natural structures that take decades to grow but can last for centuries. These bridges aren't monuments. They're collaborations between humans and nature. And when the monsoon arrives, waterfalls cascade from every cliff, turning the landscape into a living painting. From the salt plains of Kutch to the frozen peaks of Ladakh, from the deserts of Rajasthan to the forests of Kerala, India isn't just one country. It's 1,000 worlds woven into one. Here, geography becomes story. Every mountain, river, and forest tells of survival, of devotion, of beauty born from extremes. It's a land that doesn't follow logic. It rewrites it. Where chaos becomes art and diversity becomes strength. Across its vastness, 3.2 million square kilometers, or about 1.2 million square miles, people speak more than 20 official languages, practice dozens of faiths, and yet share one rhythm, the pulse of life itself. India doesn't ask to be understood. It asks to be felt, because once you've seen its wonders, the snow, the sand, the rivers, the temples, you realize something profound. This isn't just a journey across a land. It's a journey into what it means to be alive.